What is up, Packers fans? We made it. It's officially draft day. Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast presented by Luigi's Pizza. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. I am overjoyed to be talking with you guys today, breaking down, previewing everything about the draft that we have left to talk about. There's not a lot of stones that we've left uncovered. We've gone through so many of the key prospects. We've gone through mock draft scenarios. We've gone over everything. Today is going to be narrowing down who's going to be that pick in the first round. I'll make my official prediction. We'll go through some mock drafts that are out there, the odds that are out there. Before we get there, a couple things really quick. As I mentioned, today's show is presented by Luigi's Pizza. So happy and excited to be back partnering with Luigi's. Make sure that you are getting your draft pizzas with Luigi's. That's how we started this entire relationship. Last year at the end of the draft, I posted time for a draft pizza, and I snapped a picture of it. It was a Luigi's Pizza because they're legitimately my favorites. And they reached out to me and said, hey, we love the podcast. You love the pizzas. Let's work together. And it's been a beautiful relationship ever since. So if you're getting a draft pizza just like I did last year, make sure you're making it a Luigi's Pizza and you will not go wrong. Also, they're making the pizzas in Green Bay again, which is really, really cool as well. I also want to just shout out a huge thank you, a massive thank you to everyone who came out to Hagemeister Park on Wednesday night. A awesome showing. A ton of people were there. Just 2 hours straight of talking all things Packers draft. We actually talked a little bit about Luigi's Pizzas as well. That's a true story. But it was just a super fun time. Met a ton of amazing people, awesome Packers fans. And I'm just always blown away by the support. I'm always blown away by the amazing quality of the people. It was a really cool event. And thanks for Hagemeister Park for having us. And a huge thank you to everyone who showed out. That was a ton of fun. And it was so just happy to do it. And it was really cool meeting all of you guys. So just remember, we've got another one coming up on Saturday at Titletown Brewery, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you missed the one at Hagemeister Park, you still have the ability to get out there. Titletown Brewery on Saturday after the draft, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Just one other thing as a request for those of you who've been watching the channel for a while. Anything you can do during this draft time to make extra interaction, whether it's on the audio side or on the video side, click the links, hit that like button, subscribe. There's going to be a lot of obviously content that's out there from a Packers and draft standpoint, and any interaction that you can have with the show is just going to raise that algorithm and make it so that Pack a Day goes to the top of the list and is a little bit more seen and visible. So get all those likes in, make sure you're commenting on everything. Even if you tell me I look ridiculous, whatever you want to do, just get those comments in. Again, subscribe to the show. If you want to check out those Pack a Day podcast YouTube memberships as well, that's awesome. But all of that interaction helps the show and the algorithm a ton. So I'll leave those reviews on the audio podcast side, 5 stars if you would be ever so kind to do so. But those things help out the show a ton. All right, let's get to more Packer stuff, draft stuff, etc. One piece of information that came out on Wednesday during the peak of Lion season is that the Packers have interest in wide receiver George Pickens. And I would like to tell you that I call BS. I do not think that this is going to be something that happens. Now, watch after all of these players that, the Packers are in on every conversation that we're hoping it's actually going to be the one. Watch that George Pickens ends up being the one where they actually go out and get. I do not see that being the case with George Pickens. It just doesn't make sense. They had him in for a top 30 visit prior to the draft. As Justice Mosqueda has talked about a couple different times, they had the opportunity to take him in the second round if they wanted to sit and pick or wait until either Watson or Pickens was off the board, if they like both of those guys. Instead, they went ultra aggressive going up to get Christian Watson, using 2 second-round picks to go up and get him. And now you're going to trade? You're going to trade for George Pickens right before his contract's ready to come due? It just doesn't make any sense. If you're getting him for pennies on the dollar and you're just going to keep him for a year and then let him walk next year and just get a comp pick in return or something, I guess, if it was like Jair for Pickens or something, sure, you could probably make something like that work. I just don't see any realm in which Green Bay is the team that's offering the most. I don't see any realm in which that's the sort of personality they want to add into that receiver room and that locker room. I call total BS on. Not that I'm saying that the report is or anything like that. I'm not trying to call out any reporters here. I'm sure they're doing a tremendous job. I quite frankly, I didn't even look into who the reporter was that was doing the reporting on it. It logically does not make sense that that's the direction that Green Bay wants to go in. I guess, I'm sure crazier things have happened. But I just would be very stunned if George Pickens was the direction that they wanted to go in while making a trade this weekend. Also, just really quick on a more somber note, Steve Mongo McMichael, the Hall of Famer, who spent some time in Green Bay, obviously more known for being a member of the Chicago Bears, but was a Green Bay Packer. He passed away with ALS. Obviously, a legitimate Hall of Fame career. Also had quite the match with Reggie White back in the day in WCW as well. A really eccentric player, eccentric character as a wrestler. I mean, it made the seamless transition from a legitimate Hall of Fame NFL player into a really good, all things considered, as a former NFL player, just somebody that came in, and made an impact as a wrestler in WCW. Again, kind of known for that match with Reggie White as well. But, rest in peace to Steve McMichael. Obviously thoughts and prayers out to his family as well. And obviously a bit of a bummer, as we, get ready for the NFL draft and all the exciting things that are going on. I'm sure he would have liked to have watched the draft. I'm sure he would have liked to have seen the Hall of Fame game coming up and things like that. But, again, a somber note with Steve McMichael passing away. So again, rest in peace to him. And again, thinking of him and his family during this time. Speaking of the rest of the draft, however, lots of stuff still to go over. As we start looking at what player Green Bay might go with, there's a variety of different odds out there. So you've got different sites have a little bit different, but it's basically narrowed it down to two, but kind of three. Defensive line, whether edge or defensive tackle, is at plus 115. Corner is at plus 145. And then wide receivers at plus 470. So that's where it's at currently. Then it's offensive line at plus 1,000. And this is what I kind of talked about yesterday. It's like it's Simmons or bust on the offensive line, maybe Connerly, but just offensive line, it just doesn't fit in the first round. Maybe Zabel. I'd be pretty stunned if it was an offensive line. Not stunned, but I'd be surprised if it was a offensive lineman in round one. And certainly Vegas seems to think the same, right? Wide receiver at 470. I don't think it's out of the equation. There was some, buzz at wide receiver on Wednesday. Adam Schefter talked about, he thinks that maybe, this could be the year that they break the streak at wide receiver. One of the top mockers, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, had a wide receiver going to Green Bay. So I don't think that's completely out of the question. And that's really gone from plus 600 to plus 470. So it has come closer to being something that's maybe a bit more possible. And then corner and defensive line, whether it be edge or defensive tackle, seem to be the ones that are gaining a lot of traction that Green Bay could potentially go with in round one. Let's get to those mock drafts, because I think there was some really interesting ones that came out on Wednesday, and you get some ones that are rather important. The two big ones, Daniel Jeremiah and Peter Schrager. Peter Schrager, if you remember, had one of the best draft boards all of last year. Like, he was on top of it. He crushed it. He killed it. And it's worth noting who he has, going in his mock drafts. Because again, he's done a really good job of it over the years. Seems very connected with the league. He had the Packers taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. This is the interesting one. He was the only one with the mocks that came out on Wednesday that had Matthew Golden as his pick. Nobody else had that. Charles Davis had Walter Nolan. Matt Miller, Connor Rogers, and Eric Edholm all had Will Johnson. And then the name that was getting a ton of buzz on Wednesday for Green Bay, Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky. Daniel Jeremiah, Maxwell Hairston. Todd McShay, Maxwell Hairston. Bucky Brooks, Maxwell Hairston. Josh Norris, Maxwell Hairston. So that's not an insignificant amount of people thinking that Maxwell Hairston is going to be the pick. Noteworthy here, of those, Matt Miller, Connor Rogers, Eric Edholm, Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, Bucky Brooks, and Josh Norris all had Green Bay taking a corner, either Will Johnson or Maxwell Hairston. Again, Charles Davis had Walter Nolan, and Peter Schrager went with Matthew Golden. Those are the ones that came out. I'm sure there were some other, random mocks that came out as well, but those were some of the, especially Golden, Johnson, and Hairston were sort of the popular names that were being mocked to Green Bay on Wednesday. Now, it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. Everyone was mocking, Cooper DeJean to Green Bay this past, season in 2024. That did not come to fruition. Certainly some people had Jordan Morgan in that conversation, but I will say this, regardless of what you see in any of these mocks, anywhere that you want to look at them, I believe that the team that might do the best job in the draft of keeping their lips sealed and keeping everything tight to the vest is the Green Bay Packers. If you remember, this is a while back. I asked Brian, I think it was in his first draft after Ted Thompson had passed away. I just asked him about what it was going to be like and what he learned and some things like that. And it was an awesome answer that he gave. But one of the stories that he told was that Ted would hide players on the board that Ted loved, but he would put them lower down on the board to just kind of see if any of the scouts would call him out for it, to see who would be able to, kind of identify, of like, hey, I think this guy is way too low or whatever the case may be. And then as time went on, the scouts obviously knew that he did this. And then they, sort of had the idea of like who it might be, and they would kind of make their determinations on it. I think, if I remember correctly, I'm almost positive, the example that he gave, the one that he knew was Jordy Nelson, that he had, Jordy lower on the board, but had a feeling that Ted, that was the mystery one, and that Ted actually really liked Jordy. And of course, he would go on to take him. But he's even told stories of how he, kind of continues to do this as well, and maybe will hide a player on the board. I don't know that sometimes. My point being here is, I don't know that sometimes that even people within his own draft room know exactly where he has some of these guys, because he's sort of, manipulating the board on his own and maybe hiding a player here or there as well. And again, I think Ted had Jordy Nelson lower and ended up taking him early in the second round with their first actual selection in that draft. So I think Green Bay does a great job of staying tight-lipped and not allowing people to know kind of what they're thinking going into the draft. So it's great that we've got a lot of buzz surrounding Maxwell Hairston and Will Johnson and Matthew Golden and some of these guys, but Green Bay is going to do what Green Bay is going to do. And also just remember too, like, this is basing it off of picking at number 23. There's a strong chance they move down from 23, end up at maybe just 25. Maybe it's just a couple spots. Maybe they swap with Houston. Maybe they go down a little bit further, whether it's somebody with KC or Philly. But I mean, that changes the entire idea of who they, could potentially be selecting if they're selecting 5, 6, 7 slots later. That changes things quite a bit. So just because they're at 23 now doesn't mean they're going to stay at 23, of course. And who is there is going to dictate a lot of this. Peter Schrager might be right. Peter Schrager might know that Matthew Golden is super high on their board. Matthew Golden could go a pick or two ahead of Green Bay, and it doesn't even matter that he knows that, because some other team swooped in and took him ahead of Green Bay. Again, Maxwell Hairston could be a complete smokescreen by Green Bay. Will Johnson could be somebody that they love, but again, maybe he goes one pick ahead to, Jim Harbaugh, his former coach who coached him at Michigan. It's like he's too good of a value to pass up. These are all things that are going to be in play. I think this is a very difficult process to go through and narrow down who could potentially be in play for Green Bay. But if it's Golden, let's just go through these really quick. If it's Golden, I think this makes a lot of sense as an outside wide receiver. Somebody's got some real playmaking ability. Walter Nolan is a little bit of a tougher one for me. Talk about being all over the place. In fact, this was from Luke Easterling, who does a great job covering the draft as well. Quote, just to give you an idea of how varied even the most plugged in opinions are about this year's first round, Daniel Jeremiah doesn't have Walter Nolan, Mike Green, Josh Simmons, or Will Johnson in his final first round mock draft. Let me say that one more time. Daniel Jeremiah does not have Walter Nolan, Mike Green, Josh Simmons, or Will Johnson in the first round of his mock draft. Meanwhile, Peter Schrager, who is also extremely locked in, has Nolan going pick 11. Daniel Jeremiah doesn't have him on his first round board. Schrager's got him at 11. Mike Green, not on Daniel Jeremiah's board. Schrager's got him at 17. Josh Simmons, not on Daniel Jeremiah's board. Schrager's got him at 27. Will Johnson, not on Daniel Jeremiah's board. Schrager's got him at 28. I mean, just again, the varied opinions of players in this draft, I think it makes it ridiculously hard. But just going back, I think Matthew Golden, again, makes a lot of sense as a wide receiver. Walter Nolan is, again, the tougher one here. I actually came into today a little bit being like, I think Walter Nolan might be my prediction. And the more I thought about it, the weird thing is with Nolan is if you look at mocks, he's either like now in like the top 12 or not in the first round altogether. I mean, just a completely polarizing player. He did one agility test. It's not usually up to par with what Green Bay kind of looks for there. There's some concerns of how much effort he gives. He was kind of a one-year guy at Ole Miss and did not really perform well prior to that. Not that I'm going to scout the helmet here, but some of the Ole Miss defensive tackles in the past have not always turned out the best. And defensive ends as well. So again, not that that's a thing at all that I would really necessarily consider, but it's just all encompassing. I don't see it. I wouldn't love that pick, but I actually kind of came in today like maybe that's going to be the guy. But the more and more that I thought about it, the more I can't quite get there. But maybe not impossible. That was Charles Davis's guy. Will Johnson and Maxwell Hairston we're about to talk a lot more about here in just a moment. So let's get narrowing this down. We're going to go through our draft shortlist first. Our draft shortlist today is sponsored by Habish, and Rotier. While Green Bay is focused on building their future this draft, Habish, and Rotier is focused on protecting yours. If you've been hurt in an accident, their team of lawyers and legal staff are ready to go to work for you. With a national reputation and compassionate hometown service, the lawyers and legal staff at Habish are the elite team you want backing you on your road to recovery. When you call Habish, you're going to talk to a lawyer directly. The number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH. You can also find them online at habish.com. Habish, and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. Visit habish.com for more information or call 800-2HABISH. And of course, make sure to tell them that the Pack a Day podcast sent you as well. All right, so here's my full thinking, my full unadulterated thoughts. If I'm going to tell you that I spent way too much time on this, I spent way too much time on this. It is 2:24 in the morning. I needed to be in bed like an hour and a half ago. And I spent even more time trying to narrow this down. I take a lot of pride in, trying to predict these picks and at least get if I can't get the exact guy right, at least he's in like my top 3. I've done a decent job of it, I would say, over the years. This one is insane. When I say to you that if you said, Andy, you have 10 players that you can name, but you have to get it right or else. I don't want to label anything too crazy here, but or else you have to get it right. And I'm going to give you 10 guys. You name those 10 guys. If you get it right, you're good. And if not, bad things are going to happen, right? Just about every other year, I would say, yeah, that's fine. I got this. Don't worry about it. This year I could give you 10. I'm about to give you 10 names, by the way. And I do not feel super confident, even within those 10 names, that with a level of certainty that I'm going to be able to get it for sure within those 10 names. I like my chances, but that's how wild this this round of picks is with just any direction that Green Bay could go in. Again, Walter Nolan, pick 11 on Schrager's, not on Daniel Jeremiah's. I mean, that is a wild swing. You just don't see swings like that. And I think, again, I talked about it at the draft party today over at Hagemeister of, I think once you get to like pick 9, 10, 11 in this draft, there's so many guys that if you told me they went pick 9, 10, 11, or they went pick 28, 29, 30, I wouldn't be stunned at all. So that's what makes this so hard. But let's get you my list of 10 players that I sort of initially narrowed it down to. My initial short list. I feel confident they're going to draft one of these players. Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson, Maxwell Hairston, and Landon Jackson. Those are my 10. I feel pretty good that they're going to get somebody from that group of 10. Just to kind of go through this really quick. We know they're not going to take a quarterback, right? We know they're not going to take a running back. Wide receiver, Luther Burden, first of all, is a heavy favorite to go in the second round, and he doesn't seem like Green Bay's type of wide receiver. Travis Hunter is going to be gone. It seems very, very much like Ted McMillan is going to be gone as well. So you're down to Golden and Egbuka, both of which made our short list there. Offensive tackle, again, not only is it plus 1,000, but Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, all supposed to go well ahead of Green Bay. Josh Simmons might also go ahead of Green Bay, but also has the injury issues that you have to kind of work out. And I just don't see Josh Connerly being the pick there either. So I have no offensive tackles on my list or on my short list, I should say. Not going with any of the tight ends. No interior offensive linemen. Zabel is an interesting one, but again, I can't quite get there. So the only players that I have on offense on this list are Matthew Golden and Emeka Egbuka. And I think it's really difficult to get to any other player on offense who even might be on that list that's theoretically available at pick 23. Defensive line, Mason Graham's going to be gone. That leaves you with Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, and Walter Nolan, all of whom made my list of 10. At edge, Abdul Carter's going to be gone. Michael Williams is going to be gone. Jalen Walker's going to be gone. That leaves you with Shamar Stewart, Landon Jackson. And then I don't think Donovan Ezeraku is going to be exactly their type. I would love if I'm wrong. I would love if they take Ezeraku. I'll believe it when I see it. And I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy that they go with. There's no linebackers. There's no safeties. And then if you look at corner, again, Travis Hunter's going to be gone. And then you have 4 guys: Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson, Trey Amos, and Maxwell Hairston. And so the only guy that I left off of that list that was on my first round sort of big board, I guess there were kind of 2 guys, right? Josh Connerly Jr. and Maxwell Harris, and Trey Amos. Those are the only 2 that I kind of left off that were still in my first round, kind of big board, but didn't make my list of 10. So that's how I got to my list of 10. Golden and Igbuka, the only offensive players. Harmon, Grant, and Nolan at defensive tackle. Shamar Stewart and Landon Jackson at defensive end. And then Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson, and Maxwell Hairston at corner. So then I wanted to go and narrow this list down to 5 players. So I still actually have both of those offensive players, both of those wide receivers on the list: Matthew Golden and Emeka Igbuka. I went with Shamar Stewart. I think he's going to be gone. I really do. I don't think he's going to be available there at 23, but if he's there at 23, I just think he's going to be the pick at this point. That would be my lead pipe lock, so to speak. I wouldn't maybe go that far, but pretty close to it. If he's on the board at 23, I would go Shamar Stewart. I think they would go Shamar Stewart there. The corners, Will Johnson and Maxwell Hairston, stay on the list. I still can't get to the idea that Jahdae Barron is going to be there. And if Jahdae Barron is there, it means that there's probably something that's making him fall. I wonder if Green Bay, if he is more of like a nickel corner and that's how teams are viewing him, with just getting Hobbs and him being 5'10", I do wonder if he's going to be the kind of guy that they go for. I hope they do. I love him. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, but I took him off either because he's not going to be there, or if he is there, again, maybe I read it wrong, and maybe, teams just aren't as high on him as I am, and maybe Green Bay does not go in that direction. So I think, and again, the size is a little bit concerning from a Green Bay standpoint as well. So Barron's off the list. I did take Landon Jackson off the list. I think that's just a little bit aggressive at pick 23. I took Walter Nolan off for some of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. I took off Kenneth Grant, and then I also took off Derek Harmon. So I took off the defensive tackles, actually. So how did we get to that point? I talked about Nolan already. Kenneth Grant, I would like to kind of keep him on, but I have to narrow it at some point. There's a strong chance that he's gone. And if he is there, as much as I think they could go in that direction, I don't know that they want a big 330, 340 pound guy along the defensive line. The more that I think about it, I think they would like a player that can stop the run, but I think they're going to feel like they can get a player like that later in this draft with the defensive tackles that are going to be available later. This is a super deep defensive tackle draft. I don't think they're going to be the team that feels like they need to go and get Kenneth Grant right now in this draft when there is so many defensive tackles that they can take later on. So I think there's a couple reasons. And again, I don't know that for this scheme that you need that type of player. I think he's a really talented guy. I would be totally fine with it, but I could see Green Bay not going in that direction. And then Derek Harmon, the only thing that's really limiting me here is there's rumors and buzz of some legitimate injury concerns that he has. And I do wonder if he's exactly what maybe Green Bay is looking for here. This is a tough one. I would love to keep Harmon on it as well. He would be such a great pick for Green Bay. I just wonder if the injury stuff maybe gives Green Bay some pause. And again, because the defensive tackle draft is so deep that they decide to go in a different direction than maybe defensive tackle. So we eliminated Landon Jackson, Jahdae Barron, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, and Derek Harmon. And that leaves us with 5 players: Matthew Golden, Emeka Igbuka, Shamar Stewart, Will Johnson, and Maxwell Hairston. If you told me today I had to pick down to 5, those are my 5 I'm going with: Golden, Igbuka, Stewart, Johnson, and Hairston. I narrowed it to 4 pretty easily after that. I think there's a world in which they take Emeka Igbuka, but what do we talk about all the time with what Green Bay looks for in the first round? They look for home run swings. And I just can't quite get there with Emeka Igbuka as a sort of home run type of swing for Brian Gutekunst. He's a really good wide receiver. Whether or not he's a slot or an outside, that will be determined with what team he goes to and how they play him. I think he's better in the slot, but I don't see a dynamic playmaker. I don't see a potential 1A wide receiver. I don't see this player that has the ability to be a first or second team All-Pro. I just see a really good wide receiver. And trust me, I have nothing against taking a really good wide receiver. That's the direction they want to go in. That's totally fine. He's a good player. But I just know what type of players that they generally go for with super high end upside. And I can't quite get there with Emeka Egbuka. So he's down in my 5, but he's the first one eliminated. And that brings me down to 4. Matthew Golden, Shamar Stewart, Maxwell Hairston, or Will Johnson. Let me say this again. If Shamar Stewart is there, he's my prediction, but I don't think he's going to be there. So that obviously complicates things. That leaves me with Will Johnson, Maxwell Hairston, and Matthew Golden. And when I say I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and read everything that I could and watched interviews and everything else to try to gauge who it's going to be, it was impossibly hard. I think any of the 3 would make sense. I think there's red herrings with all of them too. Or there's, even red flags. Again, is Matthew Golden kind of that home run swinger? Does he just end up being a good wide receiver? He's at least got the 4.2 40 and some dynamic playmaking ability that I think you can make an argument that he's at least in that conversation. Will Johnson, there's the testing concerns, the injury concerns, the speed concerns. There's maybe just a little bit too much there. And he's also not a great tackler either. So there's reasons why maybe they wouldn't take him. And then Maxwell Hairston, again, it feels a little bit rich at pick 23, also not great at tackling. So there's again, reasons to say, hey, maybe none of these guys are the guy. Shamar Stewart, again, I just think if he's there, he's the guy, but I don't know that he's going to be there. So narrowed to 4, Matthew Golden, Shamar Stewart, Maxwell Hairston, and Will Johnson, which brings me to my official prediction, which is so painful to me just because I think this could go in so many different directions. Not the player I'm picking, just the process of it. My number 4 of the 4 is going to be Shamar Stewart, just because, again, I think he's gone. Number 3 is going to be Will Johnson. I just think there's maybe too many concerns there. I could easily see it happening, but he's my number 3. My honorable mention is Matthew Golden, and my official prediction for the 2025 NFL Draft, your Green Bay Packers in the first round select Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky. Now, yesterday on my big board, I had Hairston as a second round guy. I've changed that. I've moved him up to the first round. And like I said, I put way too much thought in this. And maybe it's paralysis by analysis. I am actually a Hairston guy. I know a lot of people are not. I know Ross Uglum is not. I know Justice Mosqueda is not. I actually like Hairston. I think the speed plays. I really, really do. I like the length with his arms. I think, again, he plays bigger than maybe his size. And I think the one red flag that you have from a Packers standpoint is that 180 some pounds. We heard from him yesterday that he played at 190 plus during his time, actually, when he's in season. And he's looked great and fast while doing so. So that is a little bit less of a concern for me. I think this is a classic Goody home run style swing. And when I got down to it, premium position, SEC, young player, everything that they sort of look for, in position of need, just everything, high RAS, super freaky speed, like all of it. It's all right there. Now, the off-field allegation, it was when he was a minor. There has not been anything sort of substantiated outside of a tweet by one person that I have seen. I have not seen a lot of coverage on it. I've not seen it in any sort of draft guide. And even Justice Mosqueda, who's kind of been the one that's been leading the charge of this allegation, it's a sexual assault allegation from when he was a minor. It seems like NFL teams do not believe that this is going to affect him in any real way. I am not here to be the arbiter of that. If that allegation gives you cause enough to say, I don't want that player on my team, I totally get that. If that allegation is not important to you, or I guess what I would probably say more is that, hey, until there's something in a court of law and it's, a known story and a known issue, or there's a suspension or whatever, I'm going to assume that it, sort of innocent until proven guilty. I'm not here to be the arbiter of that. I don't need to be your moral compass or anything in between. But just know that that's something that's potentially out there. When the draft is in Green Bay, when this is your selection, is that the question that you want to be asked about your draft pick that you make in the first round? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. But put that aside. And again, I'm not trying to make light of anything or put it to the side for the sake of putting it aside, but just for the sake of talking draft stuff. From a talent standpoint, I can totally understand it. The speed is ridiculous. I talked about it. It's like Edgerrin Cooper when you watch him in the SEC. It's like, what, that dude is just moving different than everyone else. How is that possible? And Harrison's the same way. Super, super fast guy. So here was my notes on him when I took my notes on Harrison. Tall linear cornerback with unbelievable speed. And tall is relative. He's not quite 6 feet, but he plays taller. Runs at a different pace than everyone else on the field. Truly stands out. Willing tackler, but inconsistent. He needs to wrap up. He needs to be a better tackler. Closes on the ball with incredible pace. Gets a little panicky at the catch point. He's extremely unlucky. Some bad penalties, meaning penalties that shouldn't have been called, and some bad beats where he had good coverage and just the receiver somehow came up with the ball anyway. Can be so much better than what he is right now. Great fluidity, or good fluidity, great size, unreal speed. Everything is right there for him. He will bite on the cheese a little bit too often, where he'll make a jump on a route and then they kind of use a double move on him. I do wonder if he has the right feel for the game at the top of the route. That's a place where I think he's going to need to get a little bit better from a technical standpoint. I really enjoy his abilities. Just think he needs to work on his craft, but a super high upside player. And to me, the 2023 tape was better than the 2024 tape for Maxwell Hairston. That is my official prediction. I'm sure many of you will love it unequivocally, but no, I know more of you are maybe not so much on that board. I think if Stewart's there, I think it's him. I don't expect him to be there. A player that I think is there is Maxwell Hairston. I think that is my ultimate prediction for this season. Here is my ideal 7-round mock draft. So that was, again, narrowing it down, getting to Maxwell Hairston. Could it be Matthew Golden, Will Johnson, Shamar Stewart, maybe even Emeka Egbuka? Yeah. There's going to be so few, I don't know that anything's going to catch me completely off guard for Green Bay. I think they could go in a million different directions, and that's what makes this, trying to predict it, so insanely hard. As we wrap up here, my ideal 7-round mock draft. First round, and this is, again, based somewhat in the realm of realism, right? I'm not going to say who do I want to put? I guess Abdul Carter in the first round or something like that. That'd be ideal. But some of these are maybe a little bit, I don't want to say maybe lucky, but wishful thinking. There may be a round after where they're maybe likely to go, but I digress. Pick 1, Shamar Stewart, defensive end. Pick 2, Jack Bech, wide receiver out of TCU. Pick 3, in the third round, Alfred Collins, defensive tackle out of Texas. Noel Williams, the corner out of Cal. Then Dante Thornton, the big wide receiver, super fast. Caleb Rogers along the offensive line in round 6. Jackson Hawes, the tight end, great blocking tight end in round 7. And then Micah Robinson, the corner that they brought in for a top 30 visit in round 7. So Shamar Stewart, Jack Bech, Alfred Collins, Noel Williams, Dante Thornton, Caleb Rogers, Jackson Hawes, and Micah Robinson. That's what I would like them to do. That's not what they're going to do. Here is my official 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. As I mentioned, pick 1, Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky. Pick 2, Jaden Higgins, the guy that everyone sort of wanted at that spot for a while now. He goes to Green Bay. I don't know if they have to move up to get him or what, but Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, Iowa State, round 2. Round 3, Jordan Burch, the defensive end out of Oregon. Round 4, Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. Round 5, Caleb Rogers, the offensive tackle that's moving inside to offensive guard. I believe Texas Tech, if I remember correctly. Cam Horsley, defensive tackle out of Boston College. Fadil Diggs, a really fast and intriguing defensive end. I believe that was Syracuse. And then Essa Pohl, who they had in for a top 30 visit. So that is my official prediction. Maxwell Hairston, Jaden Higgins, Jordan Burch, Josh Farmer, Caleb Rogers, Cam Horsley, Fadil Diggs, and Essa Pohl. That would give you 1 wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, 2 interior offensive linemen, and Caleb Rogers and Essa Pohl, both who have maybe some tackle ability. Jordan Burch and Fadil Diggs at defensive end, Josh Farmer and Cam Horsley at defensive tackle, and Maxwell Hairston at corner. Again, not what I would do per se, but that is my prediction for Green Bay. That is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been so much fun going through all of this draft stuff for you leading up to the draft. Now we finally made it. 12 p.m. Central Time today, live Q&A, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, live Packers draft party. I am massively looking forward to it. Justice Mosqueda will have the invite as well. I'm sure he's going to show up at some point, but it is going to be an unbelievable night. make sure to join it, at the Pack a Day Podcast YouTube channel, so you can join all the fun that we're going to be having, breaking down all these picks and going through it in real time. It's going to be a blast. For those of you that are going to the draft, enjoy the hell out of it. It's going to be amazing. Cannot believe it's in Green Bay. Cannot believe it is draft day. It is finally here. It's going to be so much fun. Again, make sure to follow at Pack a Day Podcast. And again, like, subscribe, comment, give those 5-star reviews. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members: Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wayne, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Wong, Peter Ritaka, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gasford, Dylan Pat Scott, Bobby Santoro, SoCal Pack, Chris Rager, Izzy Roberts, Ian Ewing, Razul Douglas Time, Jake Koner, Carlo Delgado, Willie Winklesinkel, Jen Wright, Ian Hool, and Matt Geiger. Shout out again to Habish and Rotier and Luigi's Pizza for sponsoring today's show. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but I'll see you all day today with immediate reaction vids and everything else. So I'll see you later today, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.